Y'all ready? Okay. All right, welcome everyone. My name is Corinne Zaragoza Estrella. I am the Outreach Coordinator at the UNC-DUKE Consortium in Latin American and Caribbean Studies. We are hosting this week's virtual professional development series working with Latin American immigrants. And today our session is Mariposas, developing a civic empowerment program for Latinx youth. And we're joined today by three members of the Mariposas program. They are Barbie Garayúa. My tongue isn't speaking Spanish a lot lately. Garayúa-Tudryn. We have José Antonio Nambo and María Heysha Carrillo. Welcome to you all. Thank you so much for being here today. A couple of just kind of Zoom etiquette reminders before we get started. Please mute yourself during the presentation. If you look down at the bottom left-hand corner, there's a mute button there. That way we can hear our presenters. Also, to improve internet connectivity for all, we ask that you turn your video off as well, unless that's needed in smaller group sessions. You can turn that off then. And at any point, if you have any questions, please send them to the chat box, and during the Q&A session, we'll be able to go over those. I know sometimes you come up with a question and you don't want to forget it, so just put it in the chat box and we'll be sure to address that during the appropriate time. So now I'm going to turn it over to our speakers. I'm going to stop screen sharing so that they can take over. And thank you so much for being here, y'all.
I appreciate you having us. Like we were mentioning before, this is the third time around Corinne had asked me to come and share a little bit of what we're doing down the road from UNC at FPG Elementary. And with Mariposas, and what has definitely grown to be something a little more complex than, you know, a program for elementary school students. That's where we started. So as we're walking here today, this is definitely a space of celebration, a space of honoring the work and the commitment that these families have brought for the last 7 years to our lives and to the Mariposas community. And the best part is that we get to learn while we're celebrating and while we're honoring these voices. I'm walking into this space today with a little bit of vulnerable energy because it's hard to try to represent an entire community of close to 100 people, right? With so many intersectional identities, so many realities. And so to have the giant responsibility of sharing with all of you what my perception is of what has happened in the last 7 years, what I've witnessed, naturally will erase some of the perceptions and some of the experiences of the people that are not here, which is the youth and the families, and they are the core of what we do. So I just want to make sure that we know that their voices are missing, and that the three of us will try our best to do justice to what the work that they've done and the things that they've shared. I'd like to have everybody, if you can, as you introduce yourself, or if you already introduce yourself, to go ahead and write down a word in the chat that defines the energy that you are that you're walking into the space here today. So for me, it's vulnerability. So my name is Barbie Garayúa-Tudryn. I am a school counselor that by trade, I'm from Puerto Rico, and I have been a school counselor at Frank Porter Graham Elementary since 2013. I was the founder of Mariposas, and right now I am a facilitator and curriculum writer for Mariposas. I come here today with two of our Mariposas educators. I just want to make sure that you also know that Mariposas has counted over the years with amazing educators who have come and volunteered as well. So this is not just the three of us. This has been people that, you know, that have come in and have wanted to share the space with the families and the youth and create impact. There are people, you know, that are Mariposas educators that are right now in Colorado. Some people are in Virginia. Some people are still at FPG, are local. So I just want to make sure we honor that this is definitely a community of people. It's very fluid. I'd like to introduce Jose and Heysha. And go ahead and also make sure you shared one word that symbolizes the energy that you bring to this space today.
Hello, everybody. It's good to be here. I was sharing with Dr. Corinne that I've been participating in the sessions all this week, and it's been helpful to see and to hear different perspectives. Some pretty powerful questions that the participants have posed in other sessions. So I'm happy to be here today. The energy that I would say would be humble. Again, because Mariposas isn't just Heysha, Barbie, and I. Mariposas is the families, Mariposas is the students, and Mariposas is all of the other educators that have volunteered their time. So my word for me is humble. I was born in Michoacán, Mexico, and I came here with my father. My family has a long history of working in the United States in una temporada, or a season. And in 1978, when I was 4 years old, my dad said, he said, vamos para los Estados Unidos una temporada. Let's go to the United States for a season. And that season has stretched out to now me being 47 years old, and I'm still here in the United States. So we joke with him that, hey, when is this temporada going to end so we can go back to Michoacán? I grew up in Chicago. I grew up in the Pilsen neighborhood in Chicago, and I've been here living in Chapel Hill, Carborough, Durham now for 16 years. So I identify myself as a Mexican-American brown man living in the American South. And I'm looking forward to sharing some of the things that we do here through Mariposas, and then also trying to answer your questions as we move forward in this space.
Hi, everybody. I'm Heysha, María Heysha, but I go by Heysha. I'm a bilingual educator. I work in the Triangle. I've been living in North Carolina for 6 years. And I am an educator by work, by trade, but I'm also a poet by heart, and that's how I bring everything in my life. I am a writer for sure. And the energy that I bring, well, I've been in Mariposas. This is my first year in Mariposas. And I've really loved it. I just felt this this is something that I was looking for and for a while, and I found this community, and the energy that I bring to this session is joy, because definitely that's how I feel right now. And the possibility for me to be here with you and share with you the amazing things that this community has done, it's just, I'm amazed. So I'm very excited, but I definitely bring joy.
All right, so moving forward, because this is a space of learning, a space of celebration, and a space of honoring Mariposas, Heysha, are you able to move the presentation? Okay. So Mariposa spaces are very much about the past, the present, and the future, right? And one of the things, we hold our spaces in Mariposas, and we hold them with a spiritual seriousness to it. And as a result, because we're getting together and there's so many people coming from different places to this particular place today, I would like to have us never forget that for those of us that are here right now in the Triangle area, that we live, we raise children, we do community, and we work in lands that were stolen from the Hopi, the Shakori, and the Ino people. So let us never forget that that happened, and let that continue to fuel the work that we do. Also, it's important to mention that this space is made possible by the systems and structures that were established by a university that was built by enslaved hands and bodies, by mothers, by fathers, by brothers, by sons and daughters who never accessed the very things that we're here to discuss today: education, justice, democracy, and freedom. So let us never forget. Mariposa spaces, we always walk into them dedicating the space to either a person that we feel could use the energy and the intentionality around solidarity and action, or to a group of peoples. Go to the next slide. All right, so as far as today goes, this space, here are the goals of today. We got together and we're feeling kind of pretty nervous because Mariposas is so rich and it's so complex that it's almost impossible to be able to describe it in 1 hour. And I know Corinne said that we have flexibility around the time. It's still a hefty goal. So this is what we're gonna try to do. We're gonna split the session in 3 areas. First, we're gonna talk about Mariposas so that you get to know a little bit of the logistics, what's Mariposas at this point in time, where we started and where we're going. The second part will be reflecting and challenging the impact of biased perspectives on civic empowerment. And Jose is gonna do that part. Heysha is gonna tackle the strategies that you can consider as you implement programs that target civic empowerment. And then we're hoping, just like in any Mariposa session, everybody has homework. It's not homework that you have to turn in, but it's homework for you. We're hoping that you come out with at least 1 goal, 1 strategy, 1 initiative to integrate. It's always good to hold yourself accountable. All right.
And Barbie, for the participants, also know that you know, all of this Zoom call and Google Meet calls is very different and very new for a lot of us. We much would have preferred to have, you know, to have and be in person to be able to share this space and this energy with you. So know that we will do our best to answer your questions. We can't guarantee right now that we'll be able to answer all your questions via chat in the chat box, but we will make ourselves available at the end for a question and answer and try to do our best to provide answers to your questions.
All right, so one of the things that we've learned from Mariposas, and me particularly, I have learned from Mariposas in the last 7 years, is that there is a need for people to walk into sessions and spaces of learning and of solidarity with some kind of fertile ground for you to be able to receive the information and really integrate it into your life and your practice. So these are some of the things that we integrate in Mariposas as personal conditions that should be in place for kids and families to be able to take in the information, and for us as well as educators as we learn from them. So listening with thirst, listen with urgency. We're living urgent times in this nation and in reality in the planet. So listen with urgency, you know, focus on the information that we are trying to tell you, but also in those intuitive things that maybe are not coming out of our mouths, but that, you know, you're kind of getting the flow of the energy where we're trying to get. And then if you need clarification, we'll be more than happy, you know, to clarify for you later. Explore your discomfort. We're going to talk about some things that may make you feel like, oh, like a little tinge of, I don't know how I feel about that, you know. Whenever you do work with populations of color or any population that has been marginalized, oppressed, you know, you're going to encounter times that you will experience discomfort. I've experienced plenty of discomfort because there is a lot of risk taking in this work. And so when I'm uncomfortable, when somebody puts me in the spot and questions me or pushes me, I try to sit in that discomfort because I really believe that growth comes from discomfort and from exploring that discomfort. Be really careful with binary thinking. You know, let's try to stay away from this mentality that everything needs to be either good or bad, that it has to be an either or. There's a lot of room for gray area, and humanity is about gray area. Humanity is not about black or white. So as you're walking into this, always, if you have a tendency to go to, oh no, that's bad. Oh no, but is it good or is it bad? Sometimes it's neither. Check your ego. A lot of people that walk into this work, right? Or into this movement and into activism, what happens often is that they walk in with ego first. And then they end up taking in the mentality as if they're trying to save people. Our people don't need saving. We're not broken. So if you are feeling like you're getting some kind of rush out of being a savior of people, keep your ego in check. This is really important because youth and families notice this, and so do other educators that you're collaborating with. A question that I try to use with myself whenever I'm fearful in my practice. Yesterday, someone asked a question during one of the other sessions, but what do I do if my administrator doesn't support me? You know, sometimes we don't have the support of the people around us in our schools. And that's gonna lead you to sometimes even hearing comments that, you know, make you uncomfortable, that are racist comments, or that are, you know, biased comments, or things that people may, you may witness people harming kids. And sometimes we're fearful not to interrupt moments like those because we're afraid of conflict. So one question I always ask myself is, who is it that I'm trying to protect here? Who am I serving? Why did I take this vow of being an educator and a healer? Well, students, who are you trying to protect? Be accountable. A lot of what happens with equity work, social justice work in education is that we spend a lot of time talking either philosophy or talking about problems, but we spend little time acting. Be accountable to yourself. Yes, you can talk. Yes, you can go to your book study. Yes, you can, you know, listen to podcasts. You can try to learn more, but make sure you don't forget to really take time to come up with measurable steps that you can pursue and act on. Values such as education, justice, values such as love for other people are verbs. They're not nouns. So if you have values, make sure you're acting on them. All right, so let's get to know what Mariposas is. So in 2013, and you can continue to the next slide. Okay, a lot of people asking, right, what is Mariposas? I'm gonna be honest with you, I have the hardest time answering this question. Why? Because in 2013, Mariposas started with one purpose only. We were at Frank Porter Graham, and I was one counselor for 600 students. We had a lot of need. We are a majority Latinx community, and we also have other communities. And our students, when they came in, you know, they were coming into an environment that 90% of our staff was bilingual. And that meant that parents could finally be understood, you know, and parents felt open to share about their lives. And when people start feeling comfortable with their teachers, right? And they're coming in and sharing with people the good things and the not so good things, all of a sudden we had a tidal wave of mental health and socio-emotional needs. Mariposas was my attempt at capacity. I knew that I, as one person, was not able. There was no way I was going to be able to address 600 kids, everybody at the same time during the day. So Mariposas was my attempt to create, you know, a large group of people, a space for them that they could, that we could come in together and start addressing issues of socio-emotional learning. Today in 2020, Mariposas has evolved for two reasons. The girls started with us when they were in 4th and 5th grade in 2013. And they didn't want to leave. They were getting something out of this community, right? And we were more than happy. So we decided to go ahead and continue with them. And now in 2020, you know, we have a program that has to also address the needs of teenagers, of kids in high school. The majority of our kids in Mariposas this year are in high school. We have middle schoolers, we have kids in college. And so also the socio-political landscape of our country has changed. And as such, we also had to change. So we started in 2013 with 20 kids and their families. We have grown to 45 youth from 2nd grade all the way to college. We have kids with some great intersectional identities, and Jose is going to talk about that in a little bit. Our sessions are every week. They've always been every week for the last 7 years. They're at night from 6:30 to around 8:30, depending on what the topic that we're touching on. And they go on for 10 months. They center on voice, on joy, joyful things, and learning, and also action.
Barbie, Heysha, if you can go back quickly, porfa. And this weekly, we made this decision because we knew that it couldn't just be, you know, an after-school club, because this is not a club that met every now and then. So it is a monthly commitment. At the beginning of the year, we lay out the program to all of the families and ask them to commit to doing this. So we have a very, very strict attendance policy, a policy that if they miss if they have 2 unexcused absences throughout that 10-month period, we kindly ask them to come back the following year and try again. And so it's very intentional. It's very intentional because, again, we honor the space, and you can't honor the space if you come every other week or you come once or twice, once a month. So it is a very, very stringent standard that we hold ourselves as educators to. We hold the students accountable to that. And also the parents are held accountable, because Barbie will talk about the parent meetings. So it's something that we take very seriously, and we have been overblown. We have found that the students rise to the challenge and are always present. Every now and then we have to remind them that they have to be on time. They have to be 5 minutes early, but this is something that they are really taking to heart.
It holds us accountable as well, because when you have families that are following, you know, the expectations to the rule, like to the T, you know, you're less likely to, when you're exhausted and you can't anymore, you know, say, oh, we're not going to meet this week. That is tempting. But when these people are, you know, giving their time after a long day to come in and spend the time with us, you know, everybody holds each other accountable. It's kind of a really beautiful thing. So about the parent sessions, Mariposas is very intentional about including parents in all of this process. We really believe in sustainability and in the role of parents in continuing the conversations at home. And as such, then they come in, their requirement is to attend simultaneous sessions for them bi-monthly. So let's say if we're discussing identity, you know, with the youth, we are also discussing identity with the parents in the room next door, and then we bring them together in some sort of collaborative interaction at the end, with the hope that when they get in the car and they leave to go home, those conversations are going to continue. And they are also going to hold each other accountable. For parents, the session is very collective, healing oriented. It literally is a circle. The parents sit around, they dedicate the session to someone who is close to their heart, or a group of people that are close to their heart at the moment. And then we share. I give information about the topic of the day. They break in groups. They discuss. The discussion is related to their experiences with that theme. And then everybody comes together in the big circle and shares. I try to get out of the role of leader and become more of a facilitator.
And a beautiful thing that has happened is that after March 13th, that was the last day of school for our students in Chapel Hill, Carborough. The parents kept asking, when are we going to meet? And it was funny to meet with the parents, because it was, you know, kind of like the same things that we had done with the students when we started online instruction with them, showing them how to stay muted, showing them how to do the video. The parents were like, hey, when is our meeting? When is our meeting? So we ended up continuing to meet with our Mariposas students virtually after we closed, our school district closed, and we continue to meet with the parents. And we joke with them now that they're Google or Zoom experts, and they can run meetings with us. So it's been really good to see.
All right, the multi-generational sessions, we talked about that a little bit, but those are important for us because it is about asserting wisdom. A lot of people walk into spaces of learning, Latinx people, again, using that term very loosely, with so much wisdom within them, but not with the confidence for them to see it as wisdom. So it facilitates, when we have these sessions between the kids and the parents, it facilitates that transfer. It facilitates the kids seeing their parents and the other adults in the room as experts. It establishes solidarity between both generations. And also, of course, you know, it helps the little ones with communication because, as we know, they're, you know, the technology generation, and they get to practice talking about uncomfortable things and difficult things in their lives with their parents, but also with other adults. So the experiences, you know, we try to crisscross everybody, match everybody, mismatch everybody, so that everybody is able to pull knowledge and to pull wisdom from other people and, of course, from their parents. All right, a lot of people ask about the curriculum. The curriculum has changed. Some people say, hey, you know, why don't you write all of the curriculum and you can just, you know, kind of bottle it and give it and sell it. And no, I can't do that because the Mariposas curriculum, it flows, it goes, it addresses whatever socio-political context is going on in the country, is impacting the youth and the families' lives, and also our data. We do a needs assessment at the beginning of the year, and according to, you know, what the kids are sharing and what the families are sharing, we build the curriculum from that. So if you look at our curriculum in 2015 and you looked at our curriculum in 2020, it is the change and the depth and the goals and the vision of what we're expecting, you know, everybody to be able to walk out with is just completely different. So our goal is socio-emotional learning and civic empowerment. This is where personal liberation comes into the picture. I like to define the ideal strong, socio-emotionally strong and mental health strong and activist student with that term of liberation. Why? Because when human beings, we reach liberation, I think that should be all of our goals. Liberation is about getting rid of all the messages, all of the toxicity, all of the things that tie us down, and just unleashing that empowerment in order to impact our lives and impact the lives of others around us. How do we do that? How do we address SEL, and how do we empower these kids to really act civically? We do it through social studies, current events, and social justice. We mix all of that together into the sessions and the curriculum. We use the teaching tolerance, social justice standards to kind of get us focused on what we're trying to do. Now, when I look at, when you see current events, I want to make clear that current events, immediately we go to local, state, national. Yes, we use those current events, but we also use current events of the families in order to build curriculum. Let's go to the next one. all right, some kids and some families come to us and they're like, oh, can we join Mariposas? We want to go to New York. And so it is a huge piece of what we do at Mariposas, but it's not the priority, okay? So I have to tell you a little bit about it because it's one of the things that is the most well-known about our community. So, you know, we build the curriculum according to a needs assessment, and then at the end of the year, we always have an educational travel opportunity. It's not a trip to just go as a tourist. It's very much targeted around a topic. Here are all of the dive-ins in curriculum that we did to prepare for trips in the last few years. So for Forjando Caminos, we weren't able to finish it. We did identity, gender spectrum in there. Our intention was to go to New York City and meet with people that we had set up already in New York City. Somos de las Semillas was tying the history of immigration in the past to the realities of immigrants in the present. We went to New York City for that one. Luchas en Común was about anti-Blackness and civil rights. So trying to get our Mariposas youth to really understand that the Black struggle goes very much hand in hand with the Latinx struggle, right? Our liberation is very much bound. And we went to Atlanta for that one, and we did all the civil rights sites. Apropiación Cívica was for DC, and that was about civic ownership. LGBTQ rights was when we went to meet Ricky Martin, and that was the same year that the Supreme Court approved the marriage for LGBTQ people, made it legal. Tres Ramas is about the 3 branches of government, and that was a trip to DC. Among the people in those experiences that we were also able to meet with and have the kids collect wisdom from was Justice Sonia Sotomayor. We went to the Supreme Court, brought the girls in 2015, had an incredible experience with the justice. Ricky Martin was here at DPAC. We went to his rehearsal. He gave us amazing tickets to the whole group to go to his concert, and we also got to meet him. Julia Alvarez set up the Carolina Inn space for us and came to talk to the kids about, you know, her writing, but also about her identity and how that informs her writing. Soledad O'Brien invited us to the taping of her show in Washington, D.C., and also spoke about her biracial identity as an Afro-Latina. Senator Catherine Cortez Masto, the first senator that is Latina, also received us in Washington, D.C. Janet Murguia spoke about her experiences growing up in poverty and getting to where she is at today as the leader of Unidos US, which formerly known as el Consejo Nacional de la Raza. We also met with female FBI agents that are Latinas, Latina DEA agent, and the civil rights lawyer, Latina, who was the one who litigated against Sheriff Arpaio, who now is trying to also run again for sheriff. But that particular meeting was definitely the most popular for our youth.
They all wanted to. The DEA agent talked about her experience and her surveillance and her kicking in doors and her carrying a gun. So all the girls were like, Miss Barbie, Mr. Nambo, I want to be a DEA agent now. So they were like completely, we thought it was going to be Sotomayor, Ricky Martin, Soledad. No, all the girls were like, I want to be a DEA agent now. I want to be a DEA agent. So some of them asked the DEA agent for like their card, and the DEA agent after their presentation shared, you know, their card and said, these are some of the things that I did. This is what I studied in college. And the girls were like, I'm ready. That's what I want to do.
Also for Justice Sotomayor, it was the very first time that she had received a group and address the group in Spanish. So she made sure that we knew that. That was pretty impactful, I think, in all of our lives, and everybody, all the educators that participated in that experience. Okay, so let's move to the activist part, right? The part about civic empowerment. So what happened was that the 2016 election came, and that was a pretty traumatic event for everybody. We got together immediately right after the election. There was a lot of fear, a lot of confusion, a lot of what's going to happen now. You know, should I even send my kid to school? Everybody was pretty distraught. We came together as a community, parents and kids, unpacked everything. And then as part of the discussion, we, you know, kind of got to the point that we were like, okay, this is confusing, this is scary, but how about we control what we can control? Let's forget about the federal government for now, and let's just focus on the local. So that night, when we were unpacking all of those emotions, the families decided to take charge and start working towards a Mariposas scholarship fund. They felt that, you know, with the discourse, the violent discourse against Latinos in the nation, and the attack against DACA was just beginning, and everyone felt like the best way to address this and feel more empowered and get rid of all this fear will be to, you know, use our talent to do exactly what these people want us not to do, which is to get our education. So that's when they pushed forward. They said, well, how about we make tamales and just sell tamales and then use that money, and we'll just, you know, give it to students so that they can go to college and continue doing that. And that's when the Mariposa Scholarship Fund was created. Up until this point, we've given close to $10,000 to seniors in the Chapel Hill, Carrboro City Schools who identify as Latinx. This year, we just mailed the checks to the universities last week. It was 4 students, and each received $1,000. So when we make the tamales, this is a very grassrooty type of process that we do. People literally, we pick one night, everybody splits in different groups, in different homes, and everybody is just, you know, cooking and rapping and chatting and catching up. So it's very much about solidarity, as we then we know that we're gonna make an impact, and that's pretty cool. When we start getting the scholarship applications, we have a committee of parents that come in, and students. We block the names because we know this is a small town and everybody knows each other. So we make the application so that no one can notice who these kids are. Everybody gets to read this application and discuss, you know? So they're taking in, as parents and as students, the struggles that all these other students, or the victories that all these other students that are applying went through at our Chapel Hill Carrboro schools. So they're receiving valuable wisdom from the students that are graduating. Part of the application is also to come and present to the youth and the families. So these candidates come and they create their presentations, and they have to talk about what was their trajectory in the Chapel Hill Carrboro City Schools. What sort of advice do they give the families? What sort of advice do they have for the students? So it's literally, it's like receiving and giving at the same time.
And Barbie, one participant, Jenny Hernandez, had asked about parent leadership. And I think this is key right here, the 2 examples that you have shared. I think at first, you know, we obviously helped facilitate it, but at the end, now these last couple of years, we just say, okay, what days do you all want to do? And they get together, they figure out the dates, they figure out materials, they figure out logistics. And Barbie and I and the other facilitators, Heysha, are there just to actually do that, to facilitate. So this is definitely an opportunity for leadership for the parents. And it's amazing. It's amazing how the parents step up. It's amazing how they quickly organize. It's something, again, it's not that our parents are broken. It's not that our community is broken. They have so many talents. And all we do is just kind of like slightly open the door and they push it open and lead in the organization.
All right, so we literally yesterday just published our book. In spring of 2019, 4 Kids by Kids approached us with a project. 4 Kids by Kids is a group of artists that work to help organizations like ours write books for children and illustrate books for children. So they approached us and we worked together in a collaborative project that was going to integrate voice, the voice of the students, justice, and also action. The sessions pretty much were a collaboration between writer and also illustrator and us as educators. The theme, oh, I hear an echo. I wonder what's going on. Does everybody hear an echo? I can keep talking, but I don't want to annoy everybody.
It stopped.
It stopped. Okay, good. So basically the theme of the book is called El Regalo de Elena. And what we did was really provide opportunities for the 45 students to come in and share about their experiences navigating white center spaces in their schools. So we talked a lot about participation. We talked a lot about voice. We talked a lot about microaggressions. We talked about racist teachers. We talked about racist curriculum. We talked about invisibility. We talked about diminishing. We talked about erasure. And the kids got an opportunity to discuss those experiences with each other, receive skills from us as well, to be able to continue navigating, unfortunately, these terrible spaces that sometimes they encounter, but at least give them the skills for them to be able to understand and also have self-advocacy in those spaces. It is from there that the theme of the book came out of. The book is an allegorical story. It's a bilingual picture book that is about a river who dreams of becoming as powerful as the ocean. And the river, when Lena shows up, Lena is a liberated girl who is very determined, and her main goal is basically to share the stories of her people, to share the stories of wisdom, resistance, and joy. But River flooded her village because he wanted to be so powerful. He flooded her village and she wasn't able then to share her voice and her story. She had to wait. So this idea for this picture book will facilitate conversations around the dynamics of power in the classroom, in relationships, and also in collaborative relationships. I think for all of us educators of color, whether you're Black, whether you're Latina, whether you are Asian Pacific Islander, or if you are LGBTQ, when you walk into spaces that are white-centered as collaborators, we know what that looks like. We know what that feels like. We know what it's like to witness some people trying to kind of own the space of everybody and leave other people out. We believe that in order for that to completely be dismantled, those conversations need to happen from the moment the kids enter preschool, kindergarten. Because my experience as a counselor has been that definitely there are some kids that show up ready to occupy their space, but also occupy the space of at least 5 others. I really believe, and I'm very, very passionate, that the responsibility of educators in the classroom is to break this pattern. Why? Because it is harmful to our kids of color. It is harmful. It is marginalizing our voices. And I believe that through this book, people are going to be able to start addressing that and unpacking that with young children. Community collaborations are key in the Mariposas Civic Empowerment Program, if we want to call it that. There are many programs within Mariposas, but we're focusing today on civic empowerment. Community collaborations are huge. We collaborate a lot with the people from Teach Intolerance. I'm in their advisory board. The Public School Foundation has been unbelievable for us. The Orange County Arts Commission, particularly for this project. And another example of community collaboration would be Flyleaf Books, right? We did not want to carry this book through Amazon because Amazon, it is the #1 contractor for ICE. And it would be a complete contradiction to the message and what we believe foundationally about our families and about our youth. So if you are thinking about starting a civic empowerment program, always be mindful that you need to try to reach for collaboration of different organizations of people in the community that you serve, right? It takes a village. We have done that for years now, and it is one of the best things that has facilitated, you know, the empowerment of the families and the youth and our own empowerment as well. All right, now Jose is gonna lead us to talk about bias perspectives.
You're muted, Jose.
Gracias, Heysha. Thank you, Barbie. And I was saying that it looks, people have been posting questions and I've been doing my best to answer your questions on the chat. I'm gonna go ahead and step away from the chat. So if Barbie or Heysha wanna take over, that would be great. I was gonna say my shameless plug for the book. It is available now. A couple of people have asked me. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful book. And it's available right now. So my piece is to come and to provide an opportunity for the participants to reflect on the information that you've learned, but also to reflect on the information that you find yourself in right now, wherever that space may be. And so my goal today is to provide this opportunity, and this is part of your homework, to provide this opportunity for you to reflect and then to challenge the impact of biased perspectives in civic empowerment. Okay, this is something that we try to do in Mariposas. This is something that leads our work in Mariposas. And so we are here to present you information about Mariposas, and then at the same time, hopefully inspire you to do some of the same tasks that we do in Mariposas. Gracias, Heysha. And for that, one of the questions that we think about when we're getting ready to develop curriculum, again, we don't come at this with, oh, this is what I think the community needs right now. As Barbie mentioned, we do a needs assessment at the beginning of each year. Yes, we have our pulse on what's going on in the United States. Yes, we have our pulse on what's going on globally. And yes, we have our pulse on what's going on politically. But that is not our right, and that is not our intention to come and say, this is what I think the community needs. So at the beginning of each year, we do a needs assessment, which is just questions that we sit together, the facilitators sit together at the beginning of the year and create this needs assessment. We give it to the students, they complete it, and then that helps us drive that. And so we ask ourselves this question: what is the air that we breathe? Okay, we all are breathing in air, metaphorically. Okay, the air is the system. The air is the system that is designed right now to create this movement of erasing our students of color, of erasing our community. The system is designed to silence our community. Is designed to say, you know, if you have to do it this way, or, you know, just because, you know, your parents only have a second or third grade education, or because they have a PhD, but that PhD is from Chile, then, you know, the system is designed to silence those thoughts. And so that's something that we look at to overcome and to empower the develop strategies to identify that, and then to name it, and then to develop strategies that the students and the community will act upon. We also look at the system that tries to minimize us, okay? Minimize us if we speak with a slight accent, minimize us if we look a certain way, minimize us if our skin is too dark. And so we identify that information, and that is something that we lead on. Now, we're not here again also to say we've solved it, we have completed. This is a huge goal, and this is something that the facilitators, we look at each other at the beginning of the year, and we're like, hey, are you ready to do it again? You know, because we know it's a huge, huge goal, and we know that the work that we do is good work, and it's going to help us solve part of the problem. But it's in no way are we going to fool ourselves that, you know, we can finish one of these tasks in a year. Próxima, Heysha, por favor. Yeah. So. As I mentioned earlier, I've been in the sessions that have been in part of this virtual conference, and we've discussed this in different. This topic has been discussed in different sessions. The idea of terms, okay, and what is the correct way? What is the the correct term? When should we use this? What does this mean? Okay, in Mariposas, we lead with the question when we're trying to address this question. We lead with the question is how are identities being erased when students are forced to choose between this or that term? Okay, in Mariposas, our Mariposas represent a huge spectrum, not only the students but also the educators and the facilitators here. So we represent a huge spectrum. Our students and families represent a huge spectrum. We have students with disabilities. We have students that are biracial. We have students that are multi-ethnic. We have students that are Afro-Latino or Afro-Latina-X. We have students that are LGBTQ. Okay, so we lead into this question and of how to address the situation. And the best way that we have found on how to address the situation is by unpacking the terms with the students. Okay, what does this term mean? Who created this term? Okay, what does this term signify? What does this term say about you if this is the term that you do? Okay, we believe that providing the students knowledge is the best way for them to then at the end identify, yes, I want to identify this way. And once they do that, we celebrate whatever identity they have, okay? Whatever identity they choose to have, we feel that once we have presented that information and they feel grounded in that information, they know the history of the term, then they can go and wear it as a true badge of something that represents them. We are also very careful. We are fortunate that I would say the grand majority of our students and our facilitators are bilingual, but at the same time, we remind our students and we remind our community that we can't and should not marginalize students who identify as Latinx if they don't speak Spanish. Okay, we don't see that speaking Spanish is a prerequisite to choose your identification. So we're very careful with that. And so again, I invite you to reflect on this. Again, it's been mentioned in the conference the last couple of in different sessions. So I invite you to reflect on it. Okay, I invite you to reflect and think about how you're dealing with terms when you're working with.
Do you mind if I say something about the term Latinx and the term Hispanic? So what we're saying is, okay, this is a classic example about that binary thinking, right? The term is not either good and it's not bad, right? Latinx unifies all of the people that encompass the group. And that's a great thing because solidarity is awesome. It feels good. You know, we're tied sometimes by language. Our cultures, you know, they're not the same, but we tend to kind of function with the same joy and the same resistance mentality. That's great. What we're saying is the complexity of the youth and the families that make up Mariposas has taught us that we are required to question that term at all times. How? By allowing opportunity for these kids to be able to learn about the term and get the choice to define themselves as however they want to be defined. So again, that binary thinking, the term Latino, the term Hispanic, always make sure that if you're gonna use it and you're in a group of students, don't use it to brush over identities. Make sure that you're also allowing the students to say, I'm from El Salvador, I am from Puerto Rico, I'm Afro-Latina, I'm this, I'm that. Just unpack the complexity.
Gracias, Barbie. In Mariposas, one term that we don't use is minority, okay? The reason why we don't use this term is because we believe that the system, our system is perpetuated on white supremacy, and the system of white supremacy benefits when certain terms like minority are used, okay? We see this term as a term that is used to silence people, okay? We see this term as a way of categorizing or dividing people, okay? So this is one term that in Mariposas we do not use, and again, we unpack this with the student. We talk about the numbers, the population numbers of people of color in the United States. So this is something that we do, and we do not use this term. We use terms that celebrate and honor and give positive identity association to our community. Okay, and in Mariposas, we don't see minority as a term that does that celebrates or honors our rich history. This one, who gets to be an American? This was a question, as you see over on the right-hand side. This was just one of our ¿cómo se dice? Ticket activity where the students, the Mariposa students, as they came in, they had the question, and we asked them to define American or Americano or Americana. And this came about again because we kept hearing this from our students. They kept sharing stories when they were sharing situations or encounters they had. They would say certain things like, yeah, so that American person said that to me. Or yeah, I was with a lot of American people, and we were like, "What are you talking about?" You know, because it's like, you know, help us figure this out. And so it was something again that we found after we dug and asked some more questions. We found that the vast majority of the time when the students were using American, they were only using American to describe a white person in our community. And so we talked about that. We openly talked about that. And then we started to ask, like, you know, why is that person American and you may not see yourself as American, okay? And so it was pretty eye-opening discussion. And again, it was just, again, leaning into questions of digging deeper, of unpacking, of leading the information. We had a lot of this discussion when we talked about the immigrant experience, when we looked at different ethnic groups before we went to New York City. We studied the Irish, we studied the Italian, we studied the German immigration practices. And they started to see similar things. They started to see, when we would look at political cartoons of how the Italians were seen as rodents, or how the Italians were seen as crime-ridden, they started to see certain themes that, you know, now they see in memes, or now they see in social media. And so again, we use this question about American, or mira ese americano, look at that American, or that American did that to me. We also use this time when we were talking about just, who has the right, who has who has this American label, or who can use this American label. And this is an ongoing discussion. By no means have we said that we have eradicated this thought or have gotten rid of this thought from our students and even from our parents. Sometimes when we're sitting around in a circle and a parent will say, si esa familia americana, and we kind of like look at them and they're like, sí, se me olvida, I forget about that, we shouldn't use that term. So it's just something, again, that we know and we unpack with the student.
Just to give you, can I give a quick little story just to drive the point home? This is really, really, really important. And I wish all educators would, whenever they hear this, interrupt and educate, right? Back when Donald Trump was elected, we had to do a lot of unpacking around that with both the youth and the families. And one of the questions, when we were discussing this term of American, I asked them, we have, to the kids that have American passports, which is the majority of our kids are born here, what color is your passport? And they were like, well, I think it's blue. And I think it has, an eagle. And we're in a circle, having this discussion. And I said, well, do you think Mr. Trump's passport is the same as yours? They were like, no. And I said, what do you mean no? No, his is different than mine. And I said, well, how come? It says the United States of America. It's like, because he's an American. That's what they said. They actually thought that the white president and other white people had a different passport than their passport. So when you think that your American citizenship is inferior in every way down to the color of your passport, just imagine the implications that has for you as you try to navigate the spaces and make an impact in your community or become democratically engaged. We're expecting people, kids to grow up thinking and owning this American citizenship or their power, if they're undocumented, their power to create an impact, when they themselves don't even believe it. Imagine how much self-marginalizing comes from just that.
Gracias, Barbie. And so my goal here again is to challenge you to reflect, to challenge the impact of biased perspectives, okay, and the role they have on civic empowerment. Barbie mentioned undocumented members of our community. That's something, again, that we talk about. Yes, we want everybody to vote. Yes, we want everybody that's eligible to register and to vote. Yes, we think that is something that is key and is fundamental to our civic duties here, living in the United States. But we also recognize the importance that isn't the end all and be all. Okay, we understand, we talked about the families participating in leadership activities through just the organizing of tamales that we have raised over $10,000 for students. We've also talked about the leadership of just forming and being the people that read scholarship applications and then decide how we were going to spend that money. That's all they do. That's civic empowerment. That is not, you are not civically empowered if you vote. Okay, so we drive this goal or this kind of like thought process into all of our mariposas and into all of our parents. We try to get them to think that voting is not the end all of civic empowerment. You can be civically engaged. You can have civic empowerment by doing things. We have had a couple of situations in our community, in our experience in the last 5 years. We had a family about maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and she really took this to heart. She said, what I can do is I can get together all of these things and I can make a basket, and the basket, and I could sell raffle tickets. And we're like, yes, way to go. That's what we want you to do. And she's like, and I want to donate it to the scholarship program. And we're like, yeah, we did it. And then she did it again. And then she did it again. By that time, we're like, okay, maybe you need to tone down a little bit. But that was like, really, she caught fire, you know, and she caught the idea of like civic empowerment can take so many different ways.
And the role of these parents, right? Of developing and modeling these democratic and civic behaviors for their first generation American citizens, right? Powerful stuff that they need to see themselves, right, as people who are capable of not only influencing, you know, their lives and the community, but also that responsibility of generating, you know, those really engaged and developing and engaged, democratically engaged and civically engaged child. You don't need papers to do that.
Quickly, one other story, this situation with COVID. We live here in Chapel Hill, Orange, Durham County. There's been a lot of services and a lot of support of our community, I believe, in different ways from churches. But we've also seen families just step up and say, you know, we heard so-and-so is sick, and they'll get together, they'll rotate, you know, cooking meals to take to that family. And they do it all by themselves, you know, and they do it without, you know, having to post it on social media. They do it and they organize to help each other out. They start different raffles to, you know, raise money for those families that are impacted by COVID and have not been able to receive any of the benefits that other people in our community have received for COVID relief. So again, it's just a way of them being civically empowered.
They're
I'll
also
leave you
essential workers, right? They're very essential workers right now for their own community.
Yes, I will leave you with this. Again, my goal here was to ask you to reflect, ask you to challenge. And so I will leave you with these points. Detoxifying requires intentionality. Okay, so we've talked about this. Learn, teach, unpack terms and labels. Let people define their own identities and then help them celebrate those identities. Provide time to reflect on who attempts to shape their identity and why. And provide time to celebrate people's chosen identities and offer opportunities to unpack and reimagine this idea of American identity. Gracias.
And now we're gonna talk about strategies to consider. Can you hear me?
Yes.
See? Okay. Strategies to consider as you implement programs that target civic empowerment. So the first thing is start from wisdom. In Mariposas, we know that families come with wisdom. We honor our experiences, our expertise, and our voice. We are intentionally, we do a very intentional work amplifying voices rather than inhibiting those voices. We center our experiences. We bring them in from the margins of the white supremacist narrative. We assume expertise. We build from that wisdom. We expect greatness. We have high expectations. We honor our families because we are not broken people. You don't have to fix us. So hashtag no white saviors. We don't need that in Mariposas. We don't need that as a community. These ideas and the thoughts of wisdom that we have are there, and we know that. These ideas and thoughts impact our actions and our behaviors. Excuse me. We provide and create opportunities to take wisdom into practice, so we can exchange wisdom, so we can exchange also joy, because both things are important. We leave every time that we go to Mariposas, every time we leave a circle, even the ones that we did online, what is it? Oh, yeah. Sorry, I'm just trying to read and I can't. Okay. So we leave better than when we arrived. And that's the thing. That's the precious thing that you see once you go or there. Like, there is something going on here and you're just better just by being there. So how do we activate wisdom? How do we activate it and to make it into practice is that we use circles. We use circles as because they are an organic reflection of us as a community, because we honored our experiences, the things that we come with, our heritage. Circles are a way for us to activate the wisdom for every single session that we do. Our circles are very special. They are very energy driven. I don't know if you had the opportunity to go to one, I will say that you're really gonna love it, because it's like this energy that you feel, because they're the spiritualities that the community brings to the space. You can feel it. It's just a space where we're all equal in the circle. Everybody, we each take time to talk. Our voice is heard. Our voice is loud. This is the reason why everybody in the circle needs to participate. In our sessions, we create intentional spaces for healing and growth, spaces for truth, spaces to acknowledge not just the light of our experience, but also the shadows. We acknowledge the toxicity of daily life and intentionally create spaces for healing. We don't dance around the uncomfortableness, because healing implies that something is sick, right? So something is hurt. So healing without acknowledging that harm that is given is privilege. There's intention in the unpacking of our meetings, on the flow of the meeting, because and by that we provide the tools so we can heal each other. And as we heal, we can heal others, and we can bring that feeling in the spaces that we are. So in order for me to describe what it is, I would say that the Mariposa space is a space for detoxification, for sure. It's just something that's the way that I could say, like, how you feel after a meeting in Mariposas, detox. So circles and spaces, and now some resources. So we have here a montage of different resources that we have used in Mariposas. We have diverse media. We embrace this diverse media. We have audio, we have clips, we have videos, we have podcasts, we have so many different things, children's book, adult books. We have different speakers. We embrace this diversity of our community and the communities that are sharing an experience with us, or sharing oppression with us as well. We're intentional on this, and also very important that we embrace translanguaging in our spaces. We embrace that language is part of our identity, and that having both languages is not any kind of weakness. We embrace that. That's powerful for us. So in our spaces and the resources that we use BIPOC text and media, because we want us to have mirrors and to have windows, that we want to connect with our identities, with our voices, with our lives, and also with our intentionalities, like with the things that we're not aware. Like, we want to connect with those things. We want to, we know that when we do this, when we give all these resources, we have to provide explicit vocabulary, explicit hands-on experiences so we can learn how to call out and name white supremacy, colonization, and the oppression that we take from this country, from these spaces that we usually are. How all of this, we learn how to use that vocabulary to know and to act and to understand how they are affecting our lives and our community. So if you want to get started in a group like this, I'll let now Barbie talk about more practical steps.
So this Mariposas is an immensity. We're just talking today about the civic empowerment aspect of it. We're not even touching socio-emotional learning. We're not touching our social justice things. We're not talking parent engagement, you know, academics and academic motivation. We're not talking about that today. So our advice to you, look at this cutie pie. This is one of our newest Mariposas that she's in 2nd grade. She was like, I'm done waiting. She's a 3rd grader. I'm done waiting. I'm coming into this space and I'm gonna own this space and I'm not gonna take no for an answer. So we couldn't say no. So she's in Mariposas. She started last year. Start with small servings. You know, by that I mean, make it small and they grow it from there. We started with 20 kids back in 2013. And from there, we just kind of organically followed their lead. Little by little, the word started spreading about that whole factor of people walking in a certain way at 6:30 in the evening and coming out feeling better. That feeling of joy and solidarity, that spread out and people all of a sudden wanted a piece of that to come to the community. Determine who is it that you're going to serve. You have to know your population, because otherwise you're going to be creating something that is not necessarily relevant to the lives of the students that you're serving. What do you want in your Sunday? What is it that you want to address? For Mariposas, we're kind of following the flow of the family, so those things have definitely evolved throughout the time. Are you looking to do a group about strictly civic empowerment, or do you want to do civic empowerment because and socio-emotional learning because you believe those two go hand in hand? Or is it going to be social justice and civic empowerment? So make sure that you think, what is your vision? Find your people. You can't do this by yourself. Like I mentioned before, there's been a lot of educators that have come in and out of Mariposas, and the collaboration has been great. It is monumental when you have nights when you have 100 people that you are receiving into different sessions. So you're obviously going to need people to get you started. It doesn't mean that you need to create something this large, but you always have to have your people that you can rely on, you can grow together, and you can hold each other accountable. Get your resources in order. Yes, you gotta learn. Part of what makes Mariposas successful is that we do have a passion for reading about current events. We have a passion about history. We have a passion about socio-political context of the country. We are very curious educators and very inquisitive and very, very, very political. Always remember that when you are choosing, you say, no, I can't be political. Just the fact that you're choosing not to be political is political. Always keep that in mind. Get your resources in order, all right? And then put a date on it. People, it's really hard because it's scary to start something. So I always tell people, you know what, get your calendar and just write the date for the first meeting. And then announce it. And that's your accountability. You will show up one way or the other. So these are some of the things. I mean, we'll be happy if you email us and looking for advice or some recommendations and strategies and things. More than happy to give you, you know, more detail. But again, we were trying to kind of concentrate something that cannot be concentrated into one session. So go to the next slide. We appreciate everybody's time. I know this is an extra long session. We appreciate and honor the fact that you're here with us right now. Check us out. You know, we have our website. You can go to Flyleaf Books and buy the book. And also you can email us at mariposacac@gmail.com. Find us on Twitter, Instagram, and we even have our own playlist on Spotify. This is the music that I write curriculum with. This is the music that we play before as our parents and the kids are coming in. So if you need a little inspiration in what you're doing to change the world, join the playlist on Spotify. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for this. This was incredibly impactful. It was very inspiring. I know I'm inspired and fired up from all this. So thank you. Mil gracias for this. If anyone has any more questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. I think you guys did a really great job. I'm kind of following up on those as the presentation went on. I'm going to quickly kind of give a little shout out for our programming about tomorrow's sessions, if I can remember how to share my screen and do all this. If you have any information for me or if you want to learn more about our consortium, here is our kind of social media and information. Tomorrow, our sessions are working with undocumented youth with a member from UNC Carolina here at UNC. I've been to it before. It's incredibly impactful, very important work that they do. That's tomorrow at 10 a.m. We'll also have an immigrant student panel discussion with Latino and Latina students at 2 p.m. and we'll be having some students, UNC students who immigrated to the U.S. At a young age and went to public school here in North Carolina, and they're going to talk about their experiences with the school systems here. If you would like a certificate of completion for CEUs, please visit go.unc.edu/mariposas. I'll stick that in the chat if I can find the chat. And yeah.
I think there are some questions, but I'm not sure if we have time, but if people took down our email, we're more than happy, definitely, to answer those questions via email.
And we do have one question. Can we afford to be political in a public school classroom? I'm not sure if that's hypothetical or not, but if anyone wants to speak on that.
I can start. I think when I think about political, I'm not thinking about being bipartisan. I'm not thinking about supporting this political party over that political party. What I'm thinking about when it is political is the fact about being civically engaged, okay? So we're not telling the students to vote Republican or vote Democrat. We're in support of this policy or that policy. You know, we're taking information that the students share with us, that the parents share with us, and then having discussions with that. So it's not being bipartisan.
And also for me, my personal philosophy is if people are getting dehumanized and those people are my students and their families, then that's my business. And yes, I can afford to be political because it quickly becomes about, if it's about dehumanization, I need to interrupt that. And I need to educate to that because that's the reality that the kids are living. And unless we get that in order, the kids are not going to be able to grasp, the rest of what we're trying to do academically. So yes, we can afford to be political, especially now more than ever when there is so much at stake.
Very well said. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. Otherwise, thank you so much for attending. This was very excellent. And I will send out a copy of this presentation as well at the end of the week. So if you would like to take a look at any links or to find out information from the presentation, that will be sent out to you. And we hope to have the recording of this session added to our YouTube channel by the beginning of next week, so you can share with your colleagues and people who weren't able to attend today to share the wonderful programming that y'all are doing. So thank you so much for being here. Really
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us. And Shanda branch, we are interested in translating that too. She put interested in translating this to our Black population.
And it is, yeah, that's one of the things that we didn't mention. What we do in Mariposas is fully transferable for work with other populations,
Yes.
including LGBTQ, you know, and other populations of color. So absolutely, yes.
That's amazing. Thank you so much.
Reach out, send us an email.
Love collaborating. We don't believe in working in silos.
Apparently, we don't have anything else to do. I'm kidding.
Yes, your energy is boundless to be able to do all of this and have full-time jobs. So hats off to y'all.
Yes. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank y'all so much. Good luck with this upcoming school year, with back to school. It's a crazy time. Just what is birthday? I don't even know where to begin with this year, but I have all the faith that you're going to have another wonderful year. So
Thank you, Corinne.
yeah.
Thank you.
Adios a todos.
Bye, everybody.